Welcome, everybody, to the Genesis Mindset. In today's episode, I want to explore a concept my friends and I have been discussing at length, pretty much since we've been on Pulsechain, about all the parts of Pulsechain and how they're coming together to bring about the reality of a Pulsechain peg, so a blockchain peg reaching parity with Ethereum. So in this instance, obviously, pDAI has all the mind share of a peg, but blockchain parity, at least in my opinion, if all of this works out, is inevitable. So I've been exploring different elements of this idea since I discovered the Atropa ecosystem, and I've discussed this at length with some of my closest friends. So I've mentioned Muddy a lot on this channel, and he's been onto it again. So Maria basically launched a minter off a PLP, and this is something that he was talking about, I would say about a month ago, and how he had this revelation about launching minters off PLPs and the kind of idea that this could create. So a lot of this is really the discussions we've had, and he's been the one that kind of he's the one that kind of orders the whole thing in such a way that I'm able to now deliver the simplicity of it. So today I just want to show obviously one major piece of the puzzle, which has really unlocked this. And we're going to show MXDAI to pDAI, which is a parent to child. And I want to start syncing you up with where I'm thinking about this. So that's what this whole stabilizing mechanism is with the burning and claiming function. So before we get into that, I would love to just share this experience we had today in Australia. So just very briefly, so today we had the second meetup. So the first meetup in Brisbane, to the best of my knowledge, we came together. So there was 6 of us. So Jimmy D 369, he flew over from Tasmania, and we're really trying to spearhead this not-for-profit. So Jimmy he's had this vision for a non-for-profit and decentralized finance, education, and adoption in Australia for quite some time. This is also something that's very close to my heart and something that really resonates with me. And obviously now with Richard Hart talking about setting up charities and nonprofits around the world, it's kind of aligned with him pretty much now putting all of his businesses behind and wanting to go full-time in this. So we had a meeting today. I met him for the first time. We've been communicating in the background, but it was really nice to meet him. So the big vision that we have, and perhaps this is probably a little bit too grand, so making Australia a world leader in decentralized finance, but always it's better to have a bigger vision than a smaller vision. So if I was to clarify that more, I'd say making Australia a world leader in decentralized finance, education, and adoption. We really want to lead the way because we believe that Australia as a country is set up perfectly to be able to adopt decentralized finance. So there's obviously in the world a big friction between centralized finance and decentralized finance, and we want to basically eradicate that friction. And all over the world, centralized systems are really trying to slow things down until they can get our grip on everything. So we're going to accept those conditions, obviously, but we're going to do what we can to spread it in Australia. We have the wealth here. We have the education system here. We have the safety mechanisms here. We have the governing systems here. We have a large enough and a small enough population for this thing to be able to disseminate at a very fast rate. So we believe Australia is primed, not only from that perspective, but metaphysically, from the perspective of consciousness and spirit, and the kind of spirit and consciousness that permeates Australia as a secular society, where this can really spread. Because in order to change the world, we need to also change the mind first. And when the mind changes, the money can change and the world can change. So this is what we really want to push here. So we were all really, really excited. The energy was incredibly high today. There was some tears. There was excitement. It was phenomenal. And honestly speaking, I've also been just overwhelmed with gratitude when I got home. I also had my teary moments because I just feel so blessed. I feel so blessed because I've had these visions maybe 10 years ago when I first had enlightenments and I experienced the consciousness of the universe, and this self disappeared and all that remained was the universe. And I had these visions of Australia being the first fully enlightened nation. And in order to achieve that, in order to bring that about, it doesn't happen by itself. It happens through people taking action. So because I had that vision, I was blessed with that vision. It's also my duty that's been handed to me to make that mission come into reality. And so all of these pieces is not being done by any one individual. It's the universe that's doing everything. So it's this really amazing and spectacular thing. And it's really, I had my moment. I cried. I was very grateful, and I continue to be very grateful because what a country, what a world that we're living in. And I really want to thank the people around the world who've spearheaded these kinds of things, particularly in the Pulsechain community around the world. People like a Wild SJ, RG3, the Europe team, KSB TV, all these people around the world that are doing this, all the pioneers in Australia who are doing this. I extend my gratitude to you guys because you guys have really laid the foundation. But now it's really time to take root and to really expand this idea. So there was 6 of us today, and it was really, I just want to share with you some photos because it was really lovely. We went to a Mexican restaurant, we had some food. It was a lovely time. So this is just the quality of lads that were here was just fantastic. We went down to the river, we chilled, we talked about World of Warcraft games, all kinds of things. We had a really, really good time, took some good photos, and just what a country. This is the winter time in Australia. So Australia, and particularly Brisbane, is just a magnificent place. So we really, obviously when these things happen, the energy is always like, oh yeah, we're going to do this thing, and it fizzles out. I understand that perfectly, but the way that things have been going in my life, I just go with the flow. I'm so in tune with the flow of reality now that when these things happen, I know that now is the time for these things to happen, which is also why actually, I'm not going to mention that, which is also why I'm not going to mention that. I mentioned it to the boys today. Some of them might know what I'm talking about, but everything goes with the flow. So now is the time. So now is the time where it's actually going to work. And so even then, these are the things which give me the conviction. So Peanut Brain. I've been talking to Peanut Brain now for over a year. And Peanut Brain I've never met him. I've been talking to him in private messages, and I sent him a message 2 or 3 days ago to come to this because I knew that he lived in Brisbane. And so I sent him a message, and he hadn't been on Twitter. He checked his Twitter and he was like, oh my God, I was actually going to message you to see what you're up to on Sunday so that we could meet for the first time. I cannot believe this. He was blown away. And I can't say I was blown away because now it's like these synchronicities they've become so everyday in my life. These are just the signs that I know I'm on the right path. So for me, it's like now is the time. So anyone and everyone in Australia who really wants to get behind this, we're going to make it happen. Australia is the perfect place for this to happen. So get behind it, put your energy behind it. Forget about what's happened in the past. Now is the time. Now is the time where the flower is blossoming under the spring sunshine. So get behind it. We had 6 today. We're going to be meeting again in Brisbane in 2 weeks' time. Hopefully we can double the numbers to 12. So anyone who's watching, spread the word. We're going to do it again in 2 weeks' time. Jimmy's going to come again. So now, what am I actually talking about here? So I'm going to have to go back to the screen. So my energy is very, very, very high. So you can really probably hear it in the intensity of my words. So I have to kind of like really calm down. So I'll bring up my cute little spreadsheet here. So these are the core ideas. So the core ideas about the things that we're thinking about. So obviously this idea, let's just apply this to, let's simplify it. So forget about blockchain parity and blockchain peg, even though that's the title of the video. That's the grandness of the vision that I can see. But let's reduce it down to pDAI. So let's call this a pDAI peg theory. So this is another pDAI peg theory. So what's really unlocks this now is not only did we have the burn to mint with the treasury system, we now have the sacrifice to claim. So when there is a stable asset, not only can you burn it 1-to-1 on one side, you can now do the exact opposite, the exact same on the opposite side, 1-to-1. So basically what this does is it's decentralized, the MakerDAO, the Aave logic, the kind of stable pegging logic of protocols which might keep DAI pegged to USDC, for example, where it's like a burn to mint. That logic, which has been on a protocol on a decentralized platform, that mechanism now has been infinitely scaled across the blockchain. Every single individual on the blockchain across the planet now has access to that tool, who now has access to the ability to generate yield from that tool. It's not centralized to a protocol. So that is epic. So that's one part of the piece. That part of the piece, well, let's just think about pDAI, but again, infinitely scale that to literally every single token on the blockchain. That's how big it is. Now, liquidity webs and superior tax token logic, which creates self-reinforcing loops. So when you think about the Hyperloop, for example, the beauty of an idea about the Hyperloop is tokens that feed into each other to create upward momentum. So you get a flywheel that creates upward momentum. So that logic, for example, in Compound, where the compound token, so the pDAI, ends up getting value from the yield, which pumps the token, that application now, which is centralized on Compound, which is a decentralized protocol, but it's just on an individual protocol, that mechanism now has been decentralized across the entire blockchain, because anybody can create a tax token, anybody can create a liquidity web. You can create your own, you can plug into somebody else's. For example, I've created the Coexist token, which is, I have to get the measurements for it, but I would say probably 95% of the liquidity is burnt, and that gives yield in pDAI. And so one of the ideas that I have for that is it's fully burned liquidity, and anyone who wants to come on this channel to talk about their projects, they would basically buy into that token and burn the liquidity, and instead of paying me, it pays the Coexist token community. So obviously I own some Coexist token, I bought some after I burnt the liquidity. And so that is a tax token. So then if I want to build that out, I can do that. And forget about the Coexist token for a second. Let's talk about, because we're going to go into MXDAI in just a moment. So MXDAI is a parent to a child to the parent, which is DAI. So MXDAI, if you have a liquidity web behind MXDAI, and then you create another token, which is a tax token for MXDAI. So let's call it MXDAI squared. Then you create a liquidity web around that. So the arbitrage creates volume, which creates tax, which creates buy pressure on MXDAI. So this creates more burning and more minting and upward price momentum. So again, this logic has been fully decentralized and infinitely scaled across the entire blockchain. Every single person, every single individual has access to it. Community building and interaction based on belief and commitment. So in other words, we're not relying on any single centralized entity to do anything for us. This is all about community building and interaction. This is not about, do we have a MakerDAO that's going to peg something for us? Do we have a team that's going to peg something for us? This is reliant on the entire blockchain to do the work. This is reliant on every single individual becoming a part of it. So it's reliant on belief and commitment. This is something that is, in my opinion, very, very, very powerful. And I even think, even from the perspective of the Genius Act, this could be something in the future that future-proofs it, because they might end up rewriting the laws or the legislation to basically say any protocol that has something pegged at $1 now is considered a stablecoin, so it falls under the purview of the Genius Act. But if you have something that stays at $1 based on belief and commitment, and the belief and commitment is basically the community's consciousness, which says this is what the value of that token is, and we're always forever going to keep it there based on the liquidity pools that we've set up, the webs, the burns, the mints, the claims, the sacrifices, that is impossible to shut down. It is literally impossible to shut down, because the entire stabilization relies on the entire blockchain. So this is working together to win together. To me, that's such an epically beautiful idea. And then, of course, part of this is what pDAI is showing what is possible. But again, when I talk about blockchain peg, the way that we talk about this now as well, if this happens with pDAI, this happens across the entire blockchain. So in my opinion, one of the biggest alpha plays, which is going to be in this upcoming bear market, is accumulating the absolute crap out of PCopies and creating liquidity webs around the PCopies and just dominating the supply count of the PCopies. When people come and dump from Ethereum, they come and dump their tokens into our liquidity pools. Yes, they'll take the value out, but they're dumping tokens into the liquidity pool. The liquidity pool is connected to the liquidity web, which is still generating arbitrage, which is filling those pools back up with liquidity over time. So let them dump their tokens in here and let them take out what they want. Some are going to dump, some are going to leave, some are going to stay. This is the beauty of it, but it's going to lead to cross-chain parity with Ethereum. But this is going to be a process that's going to happen sustainably and over a longer period of time. When I say longer period of time, don't get your knickers in a twist. I'm not saying 5 years, 10 years. I'm just saying it's probably going to be longer than the duration of this current bull market, which I believe will end probably around about the end of this year. I don't think that there's going to be a super cycle. And the reason why I say that is for you to have the vigilance to be prepared to hear those kinds of narratives, because those are the narratives that get thrown around at the end of a bull market to keep you round tripping. You're the one that will buy, keep buying at the tops, thinking it's going to keep going. Oh, it's a super cycle. It's a super cycle. I'm going to buy. Or there's only going to be like a 30% dip, and you're going to be like, it's a super cycle. It's a super cycle. And you're going to take profits up here, but then you're going to rebuy on a 30% dip, thinking it's going to be a super cycle. But again, you're just going to be exit liquidity for whales that are going to keep dumping, and everything's still going to go down 80 to 90%. So I'm saying to you, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but those are the same things that I've seen at the end of every cycle. This is a super cycle. This is a super cycle. What about this condition? What about that condition? It's always the same things. So that's kind of going a little bit sidetracked. So I won't go too much down that track. But when I say a longer period of time, I just believe between now and the end of the next bull market, pDAI is going to get to $1, and we're going to start to see at least elements of cross-chain parity, if not within the next six to 12 months. And really, if we can achieve some kind of parity during a bear market, or like really towards the end of the bull market, that would be epic. That would be profoundly epic. That would be the ultimate scenario from a marketing point of view, and from an eyes on chain point of view, and from a psychological point of view. Just go ask ChatGPT. Don't ask me. I mean, for me, it's like an intuitive thing and it makes total sense. But I asked ChatGPT and it confirmed it for me. So I was like, okay, well, I've got all the evidence that I need from the smartest intelligence on the planet that exists right now. So now let me finally bring up the charts to show this. The very first mechanism. So why did this stop sharing? Where did we go? Okay, here we go. So finally, all right. So now I'm going to go to the MXDAI and pDAI chart. So there was a big stream the other day, and now I'm basically just summarizing that mechanism and making it very, very simple to understand. So here is your one-to-one. So just to give the history, obviously, this first big bunta candle is basically setting up liquidity and in relation to the ratios and tokens that it's bonded with to start with. And then it gets locked into a ratio. And so what was happening first is at the start, because there was no claim that we were aware of, what was happening was pDAI is the stronger token. So the price just kept going down. And I expressed this concern. I thought, well, it really takes belief in order for people to continue to keep it pegged. And belief being that people are going to have to continue to buy it up. So people are going to have to basically sell their pDAI. And for people to want to do that and the risk associated with that, well, if pDAI just keeps pumping, what happens when the people who believe in this, they run out of pDAI to sell to buy MXDAI? It presents a risk. So it could keep doing this when the buyers are exhausted. But now, because of the claim, so whenever it's above, there would always be the burn. So burning pDAI. So whenever it's above, so here, for example, it's above, and here, for example, it's above, you would burn your pDAI. So you're reducing the supply of pDAI, the circulating supply, which gets burnt only to the contract. It doesn't go to the debt address. It goes to the MXDAI contract. So then you would mint MXDAI, the same at 1-to-1, 1-to-1, 1-to-1. And then you would sell your MXDAI. And as you're selling your MXDAI, you're getting your pDAI back. And then you would have an excess supply of MXDAI. So you would end up with more tokens. That only happened in one direction. But now we know that now the Mandala team basically discovered the claim function on the contract, and they built that into their front end, which I'll show you in just a moment. So what that is basically the opposite side of the spectrum. So when it's below, you sacrifice your MXDAI, and I'm just using the term sacrifice, but really you could interchange these words for burn and mint. It's the same thing, burn and mint, but now I'm just calling it sacrifice and claim because the function is claim, and I'm going to call it sacrifice because you're going to sacrifice your MXDAI. So in other words, you're going to give up one MXDAI to claim back one pDAI. So then that pDAI then returns back into circulation. So you can see this was discovered just the other day. So, oh boy, We had the talk on Friday night, did we not, boys? Richard and DeFi Pulse Pro. Was that Independence Day? It was Independence Day. We had the talk on, well, it was Independence Day in Australia, and I believe it probably would have been Independence Day in the morning in the USA. So we discovered this on Independence Day. So giddy up all the cowboys in America. So now you can see how tight the peg is now since that particular moment. The peg is so tight. So prior to this, it was like a 12% swing, which is, well, here we go. So it's about a 15% swing, 16% swing. That's really, 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 really good. That's a very, very tight peg just based on community belief. But now, because of the mechanism that's been unlocked with the claim, it's like, it's extraordinarily tight. It's extremely tight, and almost to the point where it's like, oh man, I really want to see more swings. So this has like been a 3% swing since the 4th of July. I would rather see more swings. I want to see more volatility as a liquidity provider. So I showed you how to, in that stream, how we added liquidity for MXDAI and pDAI, because basically it's one-to-one, it's interchangeable. So basically you're turning your pDAI into a yield-bearing asset with, well, I can't think of any risk for losing the pDAI because it's one-to-one. The only risk okay, look, there are potential risks. So we have to be sincere about the potential risks. But I still can't. You can only claim back off the contract address the amount of pDAI that's actually there. So someone could come along and claim all the pDAI out of the contract address, but the amount of pDAI that will be on the contract address will be the amount of circulating supply in total of the MXDAI. So no one can ever come along and claim all of it. So there's always going to be an opportunity for you to claim some pDAI back off the contract. So that kind of really, it's like a non-risk. I can't really see a scenario where that could possibly happen, but that's the only thing that I can think of in my mind. I want to see volatility. I want to see it crazy. And just think about this. So if we had this scenario with the recent pDAI wave, you would get a ratio that goes like this. You would have gotten a absolutely bonkers ratio. And I'm talking like bonkers. I'm talking probably like 20-1 kind of a scenario, or 10-1 or something like this. You would then have been able to burn your pDAI 1-1 with MXDAI while the ratio is 20-1. So you would burn one pDAI to mint one MXDAI, but one MXDAI is worth one pDAI. So then you'd be able to sell the MXDAI for 20 pDAI. So you'd multiply your pDAI by 20, sell it down, bring the ratio, and you'd have way more pDAI. Obviously, in a liquidity pool like this, where the liquidity is quite thin, you're probably not going to have much of an opportunity to do a lot of that because it's such a thin liquidity pool. If this was a larger liquidity pool, then you'll be able to do that with a lot more. For example, this is where the Atropa and pDAI ratio presented a really, really good like ratio. The XUSD and pDAI also presented an incredible ratio. So those are the things where it's like, if there is any wild swing, any massive volatility that happens, these kinds of tools now protect the peg of pDAI. And this is just one example. This is just one example that a community's gotten around to build, and this community's nurturing this. They're treating it like their little garden. It's beautiful to be part of. You go in there, I'm communicating in there more since I created a liquidity pool. It's just beautiful. Like, it's a wonderful community. That's exactly what you want to see. But you don't need to do this. You don't need to be a part of this community if you don't want to. You think, oh, this is a bit too risky. I don't trust those guys. Make your own with your 5 best friends. Burn your pDAI, reduce the supply, mint a token that you peg 1-1, create a little liquidity web for it, and then just maintain the stability with these mechanisms. There's literally, I cannot think of any risk scenario. I would love to think of a risk scenario. I would love for somebody to present a risk scenario to me, but I can't think of any. So always check the liquidity pools versal.app. So this is Matrix DAI. 33,000. You know we love 33s on this channel. And they've made it incredibly simple with this beautiful front end for their Mandala, MDALA.io, and you just go to trade and you go to V3 Minter. So they have 3 tokens that they've done this with, and so pDAI, Mandala, and Epiphany. So pDAI, Mandala, and Epiphany. So then You can see here 1-to-1, no matter what, doesn't matter the amount. I mean, obviously it does matter the amount because it's going to, well, actually when you're burning, it doesn't matter the amount because it just matters how much actual pDAI you have. But on the opposite side, it doesn't matter. Again, it still doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it's always going to be 1-to-1. It doesn't matter what number is here. It's obviously dependent on, again, how much you can actually claim back, but it's always 1-to-1. So there is no risk. It's 1-to-1. It's an interchangeable token 1-to-1. So what are you doing? You're reducing the supply of pDAI, which is increasing its ability to pump. And then you're basically transferring pDAI's value into something else. So you're not inventing liquidity, you're transferring liquidity. But by transferring that liquidity, you're still making something more pumpable. Yes, you can bring it back into circulating supply when it comes down here and you do 1-to-1, but there's still going to be heaps burnt on the contract. And as a matter of fact, I mean, let's just have a look at how much is on the contract right now. So we'll go to the holders list. So now we're opening up. So if anyone wants to know how to do this on Dex Screener, I'm going to MXDAI and I'm pressing the HLD and it's opening up a pop-up for the Pulsechain Explorer. So 92 holders. So if you actually click on the contract address, and you'll see here are tokens that are on the contract. You press tokens and it will say, so there's currently 5.5 million tokens on the contract. Keep calm and make beast strong. Printer, Hex, OG Web Chef. And hey, whoever did this, smart, because now you just had a cheeky shill. So when someone like me who's exploring these things, whoever's like in the OG Web Chef ecosystem has basically just done a free shill for their ecosystem here. So Beast and OG Web Chef. So there we go. So DAI stablecoin, 5.5 million tokens. And you'll see that, let's see if anyone's actually claimed, how much has been claimed off. So only 100,000 has actually been claimed off the contract. And when you look at the ratio, there is no reason to claim any because the ratio is like it's so tight. It's so tight. It's really incredibly tight. And like whether you want to claim or you want to just be someone who swaps and swaps and swaps and swaps or claims and burns and claims and burns, it's completely up to you. The community will do it. The peg will maintain. Like, I can't see a scenario where this fails. Obviously, the things to look out for with things like this is I've been doing a DeFi in 5 series. So one of them was the 7 principles of a good liquidity pool. So you don't necessarily want something where one of the principles is community owned LP. You don't want whales. At the same time, sometimes it's good to have whales. So if there's a trusted whale in there that's like one of the top dogs and you know he's always going to protect it, that's brilliant. But if there's a big whale in there, you don't know who it is, and you're looking at this and you're like, okay, who are the holders on here? And there's somebody who owns. So this is a contract address. This person owns 6.5, which is really not that much. 6.5%, 1.4%, and I'd probably say that this is probably DeFi Pulse Pro, the founder of the whole community, who's burnt like 80 to 90% of the liquidity anyway. So his actions are showing that he's a benevolent actor. So I look at their actions and what they're doing. So that eliminates all of the fear that I have towards him as an individual. Even though I've never met him, it's like, okay, these are his actions. He's doing something good. So this is probably his. So somebody owns 6.5%. But if you looked at this and, somebody owns like 90% of the tokens or something like this, or maybe you dig deeper into some of these liquidity pools and somebody owns like 90% of the liquidity pool, then that's where the risk can present itself. So you still do have to do your research. Nothing is a guarantee. You always have to do your own research. But if it's ticking those boxes, like from the perspective of literally just transferable 1-to-1, even if somebody dumps the shit out of MXDAI and it's like, oh no, MXDAI, they just absolutely tanked it. Someone dumped all their MXDAI. You still have your MXDAI. You can still claim it back 1-to-1 for your pDAI. So again, it's like there's no risk. I would love to consider a scenario where there's risk. I want to present to you an objective reality of risk, but I can't see it in this scenario. And again, this tool is available to everybody through the V3 Minter. Anybody and everybody can do this. It's fully decentralized, infinitely scaled across the blockchain. It is epic. So, all right, I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to go through the chat just to see if, oh no, it was black the whole time. What happened here? Oh, what happened here? Is this still streaming? Oh man. Test. Was that streaming the whole time? Hollywood Dyson stream reposted. Thanks, Steve, for the work. Can someone tell me if that was streamed the whole time? Because when I came back to this, it was all black. So I don't know if the last like 10 minutes of me talking. Okay, cool. All right, good. So I'll bring that up so you don't have to just look at my face. You can at least look at the chart because it's a beautiful, beautiful chart. And again, we've got the principles here. So, okay, let me just go through these questions. What if they never come, Coco? Is there any tech in crypto anymore? What if they never come, Coco? What if who never comes? Sorry, Love Temple. What if they never come for what? You mean for the next meetup in Brisbane? Is that what you mean? Or something else? I'm not too sure. So if you could clarify that. So my absolute pleasure, grounded in Hex. What's going on? Cheers. Appreciate you, man. Art day. Enjoy your art day, man. Enjoy it. You do some beautiful art. You really do. So what's going on, Orez? What's going on, UFO to land? Kakosi, Zachy boys. What's going on, man? Hey, Zach, I hope you don't mind. You can DM me if you do. I'll probably DM you anyway. I recorded today's spaces, so I'm going to upload it on my YouTube channel tomorrow. So I'll DM you that and let's see. Hey, show price, brother. Show price is what I'm doing here. So Macedonian was the first language that I spoke because my parents would obviously go to work. They'd drop me off at my babas and delas, which is grandmother and grandfather for anyone who doesn't know. Macedonian was actually the first language that I spoke. So I used to speak it fluently as a child, but now I can barely speak it. So yo, hello everyone. Peace to you, Stephen, and all your great work. Appreciate you, bro. Pulse. Oh man, that was messy. That was a good time, UFO to go. That was a really good time. So definitely tap the like. Thank you very much. Oh, thanks Jimmy for reposting. Thanks James. Hey, we got a Korean in here. So let me see Korean. So we got Hangegati or Hangugati. I think I've pronounced it correctly. So more volatility equals bigger gains. Correct, Grandpa Pulse. More volatility equals bigger gains. More volume equals bigger gains. It's really volume. So my pleasure, Hoppasai. Good to see you in here, man. Yes. So Michael A, V4 minters do have the claim function, but the difference with the V4 minters is with the V4 minters, depending on the starting supply, the amount that you're burning to mint increases. So if I do the starting supply of 1, each time that I mint 1, then it's going to go up 1. So I mint 1 and now it goes up. The multiplier goes up. So then now I have to mint 2. And then when I mint 2, then the multiplier goes up. And then it goes to 3. And then it goes to 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. So with this pDAI example, again, itchy.DAI at the moment is, I think, 1,138. So you can claim it back, but you can only claim it back 1 for 1. So you can only claim what... I haven't actually clarified this, I have to say. But to the best of my knowledge, you can only claim it back 1 to 1. So one itchy.DAI can only claim back 1 pDAI by the contract, to the best of my knowledge. You can't, it's not like one itchy.DAI can claim back 1,138 pDAI. It can only ever claim back 1 to 1. So the claim function on V4, tokens really truly get burnt to the contract through V4 because no one would ever claim them back because you're basically claiming back at a loss. So, and on that point with the V4, this is part of the epicness of this. So obviously, at some point, if this continues to grow and the community grows, at 1.1 billion, then the multiplier goes up with a V3 minter. So it will go up to 2. So 2 pDAI will burn to mint 1 MXDAI. But then, obviously, the MXDAI becomes more valuable. But then also, if you want to continue to make the MXDAI more valuable, you can create, as I mentioned before, the tax. You can create a tax token around it. So then a tax token that buys up MXDAI. So you can always push. You're basically creating volatility along here, some volume along here. So basically, pDAI is always going to get volume. So what you could do to make this goated, let's say for whatever reason, this liquidity pool, someone just goes, you know what? I'm a goat. I'm gonna burn $1 million worth of pDAI. So they burn $1 million worth of pDAI, and then that ends up increasing this liquidity pool to 2 million, because then you would have, so then you would burn 1 million pDAI. So you would mint 1 million MXDAI, that have another 1 million pDAI, then they put 1 million pDAI, 1 million MXDAI, and then this liquidity pool turns into 2 million and 18,000. So then this liquidity pool would have a lot more arbitrage volume from pDAI. So as pDAI rebalances through the liquidity pools, the higher the liquidity pool, the arbitrage cascades its way down. So the more liquidity you have in there, the better. So you could do something like that. And then you set up this big liquidity pool for MXDAI. So in other words, pDAI, as more liquidity and arbitrage is going through here, the value is going to be more pushed in this direction. But if you then create a tax token of MXDAI that's always buying up MXDAI, you're always creating this volatility and volume that's pushing through this way. So you're getting more volume, more yield that's just getting sucked into your liquidity pool, giving you yield on your pDAI. So this is where working together wins together. That's one thing that you could do. You can also do a V4 that burns. So you would launch a V4 of MXDAI. So you're then creating a liquidity pool around MXDAI, which makes MXDAI more scarce. And as you're making it more scarce, what does that mean? More scarce means you're reducing the supply. What does reducing the supply mean? Reducing the supply means it pumps more. And so if it pumps more, again, it means more volatility. So even if it's a small liquidity pool and you're not getting a huge amount of pDAI volume that's flowing through here, you can still generate volume through here just by always pushing it up in this direction through a V4 minter, or even through a tax token, pushing it up. And then the users will come along and rebalance. And this is how you're going to get your volume flowing through here. So these are some of the things where you can scale out the idea. So thank you for asking that question. So, all right, not too many more questions. Okay, thank you for Tina. Thank you, Grandpa Pulse. If pDAI and PWBTC pegs, what will cause be priced at? I can't tell you that answer to that question, Kingsway, because it really depends. So, for example, if there's an overnight Hyperloop peg scenario, the value of the cause, I can't tell you. I really don't know. They're going to be bigger. And I'm not really good at guessing those sorts of things, to be perfectly honest with you. The math and how to work those things out, it's not my forte. It's not my forte. What I can tell you is if pDAI pegs, if pWrap Bitcoin pegs, so in other words, if pWrap Bitcoin on Pulsechain becomes the same value as Bitcoin, this chain just, it comes into itself. So there is no capped upside for the core coins as far as I'm concerned. PulseX, do you understand? PulseX burns each time there's a trade. So it gets scarcer and scarcer and scarcer and scarcer over the time. This whole system of burning and minting and claiming and arbitrage, it's constantly reducing the supply of PulseX. So then once those are at $1 and 105,000 or 107,000, there's going to be more users on the chain. There's going to be more volume on the chain. There's going to be more liquidity pools on the chain. There's going to be more and everything. So there's going to be more burning of PulseX. It's going to be getting more scarce. So the supply is getting reduced. So the token value is just going to keep going up. Hex, that's when Hex is going to come into itself. That's when you hear Richard talking about back in the day, why can't Hex be 3 figures or the price of Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's going to get to the price of Bitcoin, but what it's priced at now is severely underpriced. That's where, like, at the moment, it's almost like so much focus and attention is being put into parity of the chain by people who are really trying to use the chain, that it's kind of taking away mindshare from those things. But once these things reach parity, it's almost like that phase is complete. What's left to do? Then what's left to do is just start pumping the shit out of Hex. That's where your 15-year stakers, they're going to be, in my opinion, probably the most well-rewarded people that will exist in the human history of cryptocurrency, the 15-year stakers. I know some people who only do 15-year stakes. I have absolute respect for them because it's such a ballsy play to do, to put all your faith and conviction in that play and in such a long-term thesis. But they are going to be the biggest winners when Pulsechain, when all this happens, they're going to be the biggest winners out of any single person in crypto. They're going to be even bigger winners than Bitcoin whales, in my opinion. So, the secret is out. Absolutely. So, this is the be your own bank system. Arrow point. Exactly. Your pDAI becomes a yield-bearing asset. This is your bank. You can create as many little banks as you want. Your wallet becomes your bank. Like, great comment. So thank you for that. Hey from Bali, Daluki. I've never seen you in here, man. So what's going on? You should meet up with Matt from Matt in Bali. So thank you for clarifying that, kind. Crypto 7. Crypto 7. He's a good-natured man, and he's got his perspectives, some of which I don't agree with. And I know that he doesn't like pDAI, and he's welcome to have that perspective. But I still like the guy, whatever. So, what happened, bro? You went missing? Maybe there was a period of time there where it did all go black. Anyway, I'm not too sure. I'm going to keep the stream at this length. So, everybody, hopefully that starts to plant a seed in your mind about what this means. So you can tell I'm very excited about this. In my mind, the way that my being works is I get a feel for it and I'm just like, holy shit, that's what it is. And then I spend all this time trying to deconstruct it and reconstruct it in a way that makes it clear to you. It's clear in my mind and heart. It's like there's an inevitability. There's just like, it's going to happen. I have no doubt about it. But now I have to like show you the pieces about how it's going to happen. That's the difficult part. So this is one of those pieces. So I'm planting a seed in your mind. So I'll be doing this bit by bit by bit by bit. So, crypto incognito, before we be your own bank, the world's first decentralized stablecoin with no admin keys. Absolutely, bro. Great comment. So seed planted. Thank you, Michael. Everybody, take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and start your week right. Mondays is the most important day of the week. Well, they're all important actually, but start your week right. So I've got my diary here. I'll be doing my planning tomorrow, my week planning and my daily planning. And that always and my mind shines when I do this. So see you, everybody.